welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace Marie. Thanks for joining me. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I hope your guys' week's going well. Today we're going to talk all about this Pisces stellium in the skies. I'm titling this video Float On. If you guys like my content and you want to see more of it, make sure you click the bell button below. This will subscribe you to my channel so you can see when I have new videos coming out on what's going on in the cosmos. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and also share some of your tips and how you're learning to kind of roll with some of these waves during this Pisces season. So basically, we're already in it, okay? We've been in it for a little while. We're going to be seeing a stellium any which way you slice it, really between today, March the 5th, 2024, and May the 1st of 2024. So we've got 2 whole months of some really big energies in this particular sign. I, for one, feel like something I've noticed with a lot of my clients recently is that people are having a really hard time getting a grasp on reality, or they're feeling like things are kind of slipping between the cracks, having a hard time focusing and feeling positive and optimistic. So I'm here to kind of shine a little bit of a light on some of these energies and why it's a little tricky to work with. But hopefully I can help inspire you guys to find some positive ways to work with it as this year is winding down. Now, I know many of you guys are saying, wait a second, the year just started. Yes, but astrologically, this is kind of the end. Okay, so we're going to take a look at some of the bigger energies of the next 2 months, how to work with it, and we're gonna touch a little bit more on Pisces in general. Now, this is why I say endings. That's because Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. So it represents a 12th house energy, traditionally ruled by Jupiter, which is the feminine sign or kind of signature of Jupiter, which can be very spiritual, metaphysical, otherworldly. And it has a modern day ruler of Neptune, which is about mysticism. It is about private time, isolation, sleep, rest, and everything that we do behind the scenes. But the 12th house in general, regardless of the sign, it has this energy of endings because it's the end of a cycle. So if you look at the astrological wheel, all of these placements moving into Pisces kind of represents a completion or a conclusion. So that's something that we're dealing with. Pisces is associated with the last phase of this cycle, being the last sign of the zodiac. Pisces represents a final stage of something that has been kind of going on in your life, and it's just before a new cycle emerges or begins. This is why maybe some of us are feeling like we're losing momentum or we're kind of like lost in translation. The energies haven't really renewed yet, so don't beat yourself up too much if those New Year's resolutions are not sticking. I have to tell you, I remember looking at the astrology in fall of last year being like, I'm not starting anything new until April of 2024. And I'm glad that I did that because I quite honestly probably would have not had the energy or the focus, just giving some of the stuff that's kind of going on right now with these Saturn-Neptune aspects. So I'm just rolling with it. I'm trying to kind of listen intuitively of, when to make the necessary changes. So if you're feeling that way, you've got a sluggish friend over here. So just remember that this can feel as a time of completion and closure. Now, it doesn't really matter what house it's in. So Pisces is going to represent this energy. So you could have it in the 6th house, you could have it in the 10th house, it could be in your 3rd. It does not matter. Something is kind of coming to a completion here. And it's been really interesting, actually, in recent days, especially since we saw the triple conjunction with Mercury and Saturn. I think that really represented at the end of February this awareness that something has got to go, that we can no longer be feeling limited, or also we have had room for feeling optimistic in spite of that because we have seen some sextiles to Jupiter and Taurus. So it's time to kind of get serious about what's got to get out and start thinking more about our future and how to kind of navigate that intuitively. Now, Pisces also represents connection to the unconscious because it's ruled by Neptune, and this is the planet of dreams, illusions, and subconsciousness. So the connection to the unconscious and the realm of dreams can symbolize the end of conscious awareness and the transition to a more hidden and mysterious state. There's a reason why I call this video Float On. No, not the Modest Mouse song. But I'm just kind of thinking, like, it kind of feels like you have to just kind of go along with the flow, where things are going right now. And if it feels that you have to slow down, it might mean that you need more rest. And so I anticipate that all of our dreams are going to be a little bit more wild over the next couple of weeks. I do think that this can be really an inspirational time, or a time where things are kind of coming up for us in meditation or subconsciously that we need to work with. And it can be really helpful in kind of helping untangle some things that we're not able to make sense of when we're awake and when we're conscious. Now, this doesn't just have to happen in your dreams. It can happen while you are meditating, while you're taking time alone, in therapy offices, in healing centers, in church and temple. It could be when you're in yoga class. It's not limited to any one particular place, but it is generally when we have the opportunity to tap into peace and silence. So there's something to kind of learn in that pause and reflection period with Pisces. Something else that I've really been learning a lot, I think, with Saturn and Pisces is also about surrendering and the spiritual surrender, because Pisces is associated with, this dissolution of ego. Maybe you guys heard me reference Jesus Take the Wheel in a previous video. It's really about the process of letting go and surrendering to a higher power, or that the universe can be seen as an end to the self-centered, ego-driven aspects of life. So it can help us learn to detach, release, let go of an end result or a certain narrative that our life has to follow, or a certain expectation. I think it can also give us the peace in knowing that if we let something go, something new is going to kind of be beginning in its place. But yeah, surrendering, trusting, having faith, that's a huge piece of the puzzle with Pisces as well. And obviously Pisces is the water sign, right? It's the 12th water sign. It's mutable. It's a double-bodied sign. So it kind of ebbs and flows. It'll go in different directions. It's changeable in nature. But water, the element of water, is associated with things that are ever changing, right? It's fluid. So this fluidity can symbolize the end of one form, the end of one form and the beginning of another, as water takes the shape of its container and it's constantly in motion. With water transits, we see more ugly crying, we see more meltdowns, we see more sometimes feelings of sensitivity, empathicness, vulnerability, right? Having to overcome overwhelming fears and emotions. It just reminds me of that scene from like Anchorman, where he's in I think he's in the phone booth and he's like, I'm in a glass place of emotion, and he's having like a meltdown. That's how this feels to me, especially with Saturn being there, because Saturn is the container. So it can represent the boundaries and where we're feeling stuck or contained in a situation. And for one, I really think of, like the Hangman card. That's like, look, maybe you're in a moment of suspension. You don't really feel like you know what you want to do yet. You're not sure which end is up. You don't really feel like you have a sense of, direction where you're going quite yet. And being present with that process and accepting and acknowledging that maybe now you have to kind of let the universe intervene. So with water transits, it's not just emotion. It also can be therapeutic. It can be healing. It can be incredibly insightful, especially for meditation and metaphysical practices, ritual practices, and healing, right? And so when we go through that process of kind of going through that cosmic washing machine, everything kind of gets cleared, and it's only then that we can start new. So with this current Pisces stellium, the main players for me are going to be the outer planets. So it's going to be Saturn and it's going to be Neptune. Okay, so Saturn in particular, throughout the next 2 months, it's going to be primarily in the second decan. So if you're not familiar with decans, each of the 12 signs has 0 to 29 degrees. Those degrees are split up into 3, I guess, like separate decans. And they have like a sub-rulership. So if we think of like traditional astrology, okay, Pisces, 12th house, self-undoing, hidden talents, behind the scenes, so on and so forth. The second decan is connected to the moon. So it can talk about emotional blockages. It can talk about ancestral patterning. It can talk about our subconscious needs and desires. It can also talk about really being able to kind of tap into our intuition. Now, Saturn being there, you would think would be a block, but I don't really necessarily think so. I see this as where we're actually having to strengthen our instincts, our intuition, be practicing that regularly, so that way we are learning to listen to that inner teacher. For some of us, it quite literally means we need to be better about a routine. For others, it means that we are just getting into the habit of pausing and reflecting on things before we make any moves. But certainly the second decan, it does feel, I guess I should say, like more emotional, more personal, more private. And it can also be dealing with, issues relating to home and domestic related things. So Saturn will actually go all the way up until about 19 degrees this year. So it'll start to breach into the third decan and then it will retrograde back. But for the purpose of like the next 2 months, just really zoning in on these transits, we're looking at the subruler being the moon. Now, when planets come into contact with Saturn, it does represent hard work, commitment, dedication. So that's for sure. But it also can mean that we are really recognizing where strength is not necessarily physical strength, it's emotional strength. And we might be feeling like we don't understand why there's these, emotional hurdles coming up or why we're finding a difficult time connecting with people. But it's asking us to kind of lean into that and recognize where we need to be better about our emotional boundaries or also about our spiritual boundaries and all the stickies that we kind of pick up from other people. In recent weeks, we've seen planets come into conjunction with Saturn. So the sun's been there, Mercury's been there, and I really feel like at the end of February, it was that awareness that's like, okay, this thing, it's kind of served its purpose, it's outworn, it's dated, it's time to go. But it also could have been that moment in this realization that's like, wait a second, this is my dream, right? And in order for this dream to become a reality, I need to get serious about making my dreams real. I'm not just daydreaming about it. I'm actually like actively making commitments and decisions that lead to that kind of coming to fruition. Been super helpful because we've seen these aspects to Jupiter. So I've talked about your guys' garden growing and kind of holding that space and that vision for the future in your mind's eye and not losing faith. So that's been a big piece of the puzzle. We still have yet to see Venus and Mars come into conjunction with Saturn, but as I've said in previous videos, it's a huge focal point during the eclipses. Both of the eclipses will focus on the rulers of those eclipses conjunct Saturn. So he really is kind of like pulling the strings behind closed doors. He has a huge impact on eclipse season, not just the transits in conjunction in general. And I feel like Saturn being in Pisces can also be about dissolving boundaries. So if we have felt like we've been stuck for some time or unable to get from one point to the next, it can actually help us tap into being able to better dissolve those boundaries or those fears, especially emotional fears, right? If we're afraid of vulnerability, if we're afraid of moving, if we're afraid of making changes to our home or letting something go, then it's going to bring that up for us. And anything beyond Saturn, traditionally in like traditional or Hellenistic astrology, that was the furthest planet. That was almost like modern day Pluto. So anything beyond that was kind of seen as like the other side or other realms. So Saturn may represent for us like us thinking a lot about, well, what happens when this situation ends? Or, where do we go when we transition and transcend? And where do we visit? And what do we experience? And, we'll start learning more about alternate dimensions, altered states. We're going to hear a lot more, I think, about reincarnation, life after death. But you personally may be meditating on some of those things. And depending on where this particular transit's happening in your chart, it can also mean that you start thinking about, well, if this situation comes to an end, then what? What do I do? So it's about really kind of handling this with a sense of grace and I think patience and the willingness to dissolve things if it's really not serving a greater purpose in our life. Now, then we've got Neptune. Neptune's the other outer planet that I'm looking at here, the modern day ruler of Pisces. And boy, oh boy, you guys, this year Saturn's going to get all the way up to 29 degrees. which will be a very critical degree. We're going to see that play out really over, 2024 into 2025. But it will stay in the third decan. So the third decan of Pisces has associations with Pluto. So if we think of Neptune as the dissolver, I see it as the higher octave of Venus. It can be about inspiration. It can be about music and sound and mysticism and healing. But it also can be about isolation. It can be about separation, mental or emotional undoing, habits, addiction, patterns, things where we lose ourselves or we get out of touch with ourselves or we get lost. So it's interesting to see two very contradictory energies, right, being in the same sign, especially when I think of like Pisces ancient ruler, Jupiter. And Jupiter represents having no bounds, right, especially in Pisces. So it's where we kind of like bleed into one another energetically. We can kind of see that if water doesn't have a container, everything kind of expands out, right? So Saturn being in this sign kind of says, no, we got to kind of hold this together. We have to focus on being able to stay unified or staying focused and like not losing ourselves while still exploring some of these spiritual, metaphysical, religious, esoteric like practices. So it's a little bit of like expansion and contraction. Anyway, so Neptune is very different than Saturn. You guys might notice throughout these transits that you get really serious about committing to something or sticking to a timeline or making a change. And then your feelings on the matter kind of ebb and flow. And really what this, I think, speaks to is moderation, doing things in moderation. Everybody's done something where they try to like go at it cold turkey, whether it's like quitting a habit or, starting a new wellness or fitness routine or whatever. 9 times out of 10, if you're going like hardcore right off the bat, sometimes we burn out, right? And if we also aren't practicing any moderation and we're just kind of like loosey-goosey, whatever, we realize, whoa, I have no container for this situation in my life. There's no consistency, there's no discipline. So we're having to kind of approach, setting goals and discipline with checking in with our emotions and being able to kind of find the middle ground. So the key word here is moderation. Okay, that's what I want you guys to be thinking about. Cutting yourselves a little bit of slack when necessary, and also recognizing where energy levels are kind of waxing and waning and moving with the flow of that energy. So the third decan associated with Pluto, that's an interesting one because this really is when things really do cycle out. If we think of Neptune being kind of like that completion cycle, and Pluto is promising a very significant change, that change is going to come with an ending and then a new beginning. So all of this is happening like on the heels of going into Aries season. For some of you guys, even in Aries season, we're going to have some conjunctions between either Venus and Saturn or Mars and Saturn. So that's still going to feel like there's still some static in the background that's inhibiting us from really moving forward. I have thought for some time that these transits that are taking place this year and then finally in the spring of 2025 is the grand reveal of some major illusions out in the world and in our own life. So I see it as like this like final kind of curtain call that's going to happen where the curtains are going to close and the lights are going to go off, and then everybody's going to realize what we have been seeing or what we've been experiencing may not necessarily be reality. Those of you guys who are a little bit more astrologically savvy, if you have software, go and look at what's going to happen in the spring of 2025. We're going to see more eclipses taking place in the signs of, I believe it's going to be Aries, and we might be having I'll have to look at the eclipses, but I know that we're going to have another eclipse in the spring of next year, and then we're going to have a Mercury and a Venus retrograde at the same time, and they're going to retrograde back into Pisces, and then Saturn and Neptune go into Aries. So it's like literally spring of 2025, like the wheels fall off. The whole reality show that we've been watching is going to kind of like start to reveal itself, and we're going to realize it's a lot of things that we thought were real are not real at all, and it's going to be a huge wake-up call, I think, for us collectively. So prior to getting to that point, right, we're going to see planets dancing with Saturn, so we feel restriction, and then with Neptune, where we see some things that are going to kind of start to kind of fall away. So you're going to see the cracks happening as planets conjunct Neptune. Neptune does represent the arts and spirituality and photography and cinema and pictures, but it also can be about organized religion. It can be about spiritual practices. It can be about, obviously we can see cults, but there's going to be things about hospitals. There's going to be stuff also about, I think, screens, and we're going to see more about augmented reality and like that kind of stuff. But Pluto, being the sub-ruler of Neptune here, is where some of these things can be at our downfall. So if we're getting lost in illusions, we're getting lost in addiction, if we are getting to a point with mental health issues, that there's like real crisis, because Pluto can be about that. So the late degrees of Pisces can definitely be a little tricky, because that's right when we complete that one phase and then we move into Aries, which you guys will see during this particular transit this season. There will be other planets that are going to kind of move through there. Obviously, like I said, Sun and Mercury have been there. We are still waiting to see Mercury conjunct Neptune. We're still waiting to see Mars and Venus move into Pisces. So I'll give you those dates. Let me show that to you now. So these are some dates that I would watch for. Some of them have already passed, but I still want to give them to you. So we saw the Sun, Cazimi with Mercury and Saturn, and this was that breakdown that I was talking about around the 28th of February. Then we see Mercury will come into conjunction with Neptune. And I think this is interesting because that's right when Neptune turns to 27 degrees. So I think it's going to be about artificial truths and things that are being withheld and hidden information, or things that, you know, like I would say those at the powers that be don't want people knowing about. And Mercury Neptune can be very deceptive, don't get me wrong, but there is this sense of people, I think, tapping in and being like, something doesn't seem right, or that doesn't seem right, or like, why haven't we gotten documents or you know, information drop or disclosure about certain things. That'll be around the 8th of March. And then we're going to see the Sun come into conjunction with Neptune. That'll be on the 17th of March. And then Venus will touch Saturn at 12 degrees of Pisces on the 21st of March. Serious conversations about love, money, business, right? And limitations, and also recognizing what we have to let go. That'll be a huge piece of the puzzle with the Libra lunar eclipse. Then we're going to see Venus in between Saturn and Neptune for a bit, so that can be a little tricky. And then Mars enters into Pisces, and that looks like that's going to be on the 23rd. So even as we're getting to the end of March, you know, as the Sun and Mercury have left Pisces, then, you know, Mars and Venus show up. So we still have a stellium here. Now, the other time period that I would watch for is going to be when Venus comes into conjunction with Neptune, which may not be a bad aspect because, you know, Venus is exalted in Pisces, does very well there. It's very romantic and creative and inspirational, especially for those of you guys who are writers or cinematographers, or if you are involved in poetry, music, that kind of stuff. And that's at 27 degrees. And then we want to watch when Mars hits Saturn, which will be a part of the solar eclipse in Aries, and that's going to be happening around April 10th. A little bit of a trickier energy because Saturn will limit, and Mars is the ruler of not only the North Node, but it's the dispositor of all of these planets and the retrograde and the eclipse. And so this will represent some kind of limitation, some kind of setback that we're experiencing. And when Mars is in Pisces in general, it loses momentum, it loses steam, because Mars is getting ready to be reborn in Aries. So it's kind of dreamy, its energy ebbs and flows. Sometimes it loses its sense of direction. It can kind of get confused here. So with Mars coming into conjunction with Saturn in the midst of all this Aries stuff, this is a day that you want to watch because it can be a little bit more challenging. But like I said, it's baked into the solar eclipse, and you guys will see what I'm talking about when I put those videos out later this month. Then we are going to have a period from April the 11th on, where Mars will be in between Saturn limiting and Neptune kind of dissolving. So this is also a tricky period. So this is going to be happening until Mars conjuncts Neptune, which can be a period of, questioning, where am I going? What's the direction? What's our purpose? What's happening? Letting your intuition be your guide also. And then we're going to see Mars enter into Aries, and that won't be until April 30th. So really, I'm trying to be optimistic, but like Aries season kind of gets gypped, as much as I hate to say it, because you're going to have Mars that's going to be, in Pisces and conjunct Saturn, because you're going to also see that, then Mars will come into contact with Neptune. So these feelings of new beginnings may not really start to come out until closer to the end of April, but like take your time. There's a method to the madness. We have to lean into whatever process is unfolding. And by the time we get the Mars in Aries transit, we're already in the midst of what's about to be a pretty poppin' Taurus season with Venus and Jupiter and the Sun and Uranus all kind of aligning in the late degrees of Taurus. So focusing more on what's going on with Pisces season, like really I feel like the new year, we may not feel like it's the new year until the second half of April. So most of you guys are watching this at the beginning of March. And the reason why I put this content out early is so, number one, you can move with the cycles of where the planets are going. So you know that you're in sync if you're feeling like, okay, it's not time to do something yet. Number two, so you can make the most of these transits, which some people would consider difficult. I feel like if you know how to work with it, it can definitely be really positive, especially for some of your kind of like spiritual work. But I have some insights on, what it feels like, what we experience when we have a Pisces stellium in the sky. So let's go back and look at this when Mars and Venus and Neptune are there. Okay, so a stellium, right? There's always a lot of like opinions on stelliums. Me personally, if there are 3 or more planets in a particular sign, I consider that a stellium. So, in recent months, in January, February, we're coming out of having seen a pretty significant Aquarius stellium. Certainly, there's been a lot more of talk of freedom and the future and making changes and what our goals are. So now we're getting into Pisces, and we're having the same planets which were moving through Aquarius now shift into this sign. First things first that you guys have to know about this is that a stellium is kind of like baking a cake. You have to take the separate elements of the cake, the flour, the sugar, the oil, the eggs, and you have to mix it all together. You put it in a pan, you bake it, and it creates the cake, which is basically a combination of all the ingredients. That's a stellium. You have to take into consideration the archetypal themes of those particular planets. Now, the flavor of the stellium or the cake is really going to depend on, in my opinion, not just the ingredients or planets, but I think it's going to be more, like the sign. Okay, so the flavor of the cake would be like the sign. So what is Pisces, right? Pisces is mystical, magical things that we don't see coming. The flavor of this particular stellium over the next 2 months, I think, is increased sensitivity. That's probably one of the biggest things that you guys are going to see. Because collectively, when we have all these planets come together and merge with outer planets, there is a collective mood that may become more sensitive, more empathic, more compassionate. People may feel more attuned to the emotions of others and be more inclined to help those in need. So that's the positive side of it. If you're somebody who's really in need, collectively, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be in tune to that, and they're going to want to help. We're going to see probably more outreach of people wanting to donate time, money, services, food. I do think it's a time where we really can come together and we can unify and we can be more compassionate to other people and more understanding. That's the positive side of it. Now, the other thing that I think about, especially when we see like an exalted Venus coming through Pisces, is heightened creativity. There may be a surge in artistic and creative expression during this time because Pisces energy is about inspiring imagination and artistic vision. My goodness, just with Saturn in Pisces, I've noticed that There's a huge shift in music, regardless of like what genre you guys listen to, but I'm talking about like more, up and coming artists or modern music. This is, connected to the Four of Swords energy this year, the numerology. And so one of the things that I noted I have like a master list of numerology and how it correlates with tarot, is acoustic music, things that are unplugged, stuff that's going to be more kind of softer, sad, moodier, right? Kind of Pisces, obviously. And I'm really seeing that in some of like my favorite artists and some of the music that they're putting out. So I've got a couple artists that are, releasing singles here and there that I like. And I've been listening to it and I was like, wow, this is some real Saturn and Pisces stuff. Some of this stuff is about their private, most inner feelings, what they're struggling with, what they've lost, what they're grieving over. And obviously, everybody kind of has the frame of mind, like, yeah, if you have one solid heartbreak, for an artist that can be really big, it can be an amazing album. But something that the masses can relate to, something that people can listen to and they can go, oh my gosh, I feel like they were speaking just to me. I'm also kind of loving some of the trends recently with some movies that are coming out. I just recently watched Napoleon. I think that was so appropriate for Saturn and Pisces because it does talk about, history, Saturn, and that connection and correlation to film, and things that also are very artistic and shot very well. And it was interesting because I didn't really know a lot about Napoleon, and I didn't anticipate that the movie was going to be a lot about the love story that he had with Josephine, and that so much of their love was actually behind the scenes and that they spent so much time of their relationship separate. Okay, spoiler if you guys haven't seen it, but it mirrored that. I also think it talks about his inner vision and like why he was so legendary as somebody who was a leader for France for a period of time. And it really came down to his ability to foresee things and have like really amazing like foresight and planning and, the ability to be very strategic. And so he had to kind of tap into that inner knowing. And I was like, oh, this is so Saturn and Pisces. So I'm for one looking forward to some of the music, some of the art, some of the films, the things that are either coming out during this time or what people are feeling inspired to create. Specifically, Pisces has connections not just to film, but to oil. So I'm thinking like, is there going to be a renaissance where we're going to see a lot more oil painting, a watercolor, pastel type of work? Is there going to be some really interesting like projection type art and other things that are coming up maybe? And obviously Pisces draws its inspiration not just from dreams, but also from other realms, from the other side, from fantasy and things that are kind of like otherworldly. That's very Neptune. And the sea and anything that deals with water and connection to ocean life and all of that stuff. So I think it's going to be a really amazing time where people are going to be feeling very inspired, ultimately leading to what can be a very big creative artistic renaissance in the spring as we see all of these planets come into conjunction with Jupiter in the final moments of Taurus. So watch for that heightened creativity. I, for one, feel like, probably one of the best ways to use this for just like an everyday person who's like, yeah, I'm just like watching your videos. I'm not necessarily, like running a spiritual business. The best way to be tapping into this is through your own spiritual exploration. Because Pisces is a spiritual sign and the stellium represents a huge focus in a particular area, there's going to be more interest in spiritual matters, meditation, and exploring the deeper dimensions of life. So what an amazing time to be like, hey, I'm going to start a regular meditation practice. I'm going to take that 15 minutes, before I go to bed or at the beginning of my day and pause and reflect. I'm going to set up a little cubby or a little corner, in my home where I can kind of zen out and burn some incense and just relax and reflect. And for everybody, meditation doesn't have to be sitting cross-legged on a pillow for an hour. Some people can do TM on the subway. Some people see running as their meditation. Other people see it as painting and listening to music. So I'm not one to tell you guys that it has to have any particular form. But really what I feel like is it's about getting in the zone, right? And kind of feeling like you're connecting with something that is bigger than yourself. So whether you decide to drop into a meditation class, or maybe you join a group online, maybe you start wanting to learn about hypnosis or past life regression. This can also be really wonderful with Pisces energies because it's about tapping into those altered states. I think of like times where I've had really strong Neptune transits. I got really into, when Saturn was transiting my natal Neptune, I got really into like meditation pods. I was doing those float tanks. That was something I loved doing, where they would go and put you in this little pod, and it had a room that had like several inches of water, and it's salt water, so you float. And when you get in, the lights are on and there's like soft music. And then after like a few minutes, the lights dim and the music goes off, and it's like there's no sound, there's nothing. You're just laying there. And if you do it long enough and you get into that state, your mind is like so vivid, like the experiences that you're having completely sober, just laying there in the silence and meditating and being able to reflect. It's almost like removing all of that sensory actually makes you so much more aware of your subconscious. Maybe that's the point. But when I was doing that, I noticed that I was so much more tapped into like my inner self. I was more intuitive. I was picking up on stuff before it was happening. And I also noticed that I was sleeping better. So, Pisces can definitely be about that. It can be about your nighttime schedule, your routine. It can be about rearranging things in your bedroom. It can be about making some changes also to your spiritual practice. I can't talk about Pisces and not talk about religion, because it's about temples and churches and faith. There's something to be said about the fact that Saturn's moving through the sign of Pisces, and we're going to see some heavy hitting planets like Mars coming into contact. I do think that this is an indication of some kind of spiritual warfare. And I don't say that to be a fearmonger, but I believe this to be true. I think it also can be talking about some kind of influence that the state or the federal government's having with organized religion and people worshiping, and also churches. I do think that it is potentially an attack on people being able to come together and being able to worship. I'm not somebody who belongs to a church or an organized religion, but I do believe that it is important for people to be able to have that, because faith-based practices are so important, regardless of what it is, for people to have, because it helps the soul remain resilient. So without that, and having that as almost like a bedrock for some people of their life, life can get pretty scary. It can seem pretty grim. For those of you guys who are saying, hey, don't belong to church, don't go, it's totally fine. Church for you might mean watching my videos on Sunday, and like, no, I'm not a church. we're not there yet. But I could definitely see it manifesting as some people going, there's something that I'm having to do routinely that's allowing me to kind of connect with my higher self and feel like that there is some grand plan, that the universe does have divine intervention, and there is something bigger than me. And for that, I acknowledge that and accept that and remain humble and know that there is some kind of plan out there. And so I think that that's an important part of the transit, that we have that opportunity to explore our spiritual or our religious practices and get outside of ourselves and realize that, there's a much bigger plan that's kind of unfolding for all of us. Some of the more challenging energies, obviously, is escapism and confusion. So, on the downside, without fail, when I see these transits happen in Pisces, I notice there is definitely a spike in clients having anxiety, clients having issues with sleep, people who are really struggling with their mental, emotional health. I notice that there is more of an uptick in people who are feeling suicidal. Because Pisces represents that energy of being like, something's coming to an end, I want to let go. So I'm always sensitive to the fact that, collectively, I know this is a time where people's mental, emotional health is really being tested. And we need to be in tune to that. I don't think that we just have a health epidemic in this country. I think we have a mental health epidemic in this country. At least I live in America, so I think this is an area that we really need to focus on, what we're doing for veterans, what we're doing for the homelessness, what we're doing for people who are underprivileged, who don't have places to sleep, who don't have food, they don't have clothes, and whether or not we're really looking out for those who are lost, because that's really what Pisces represents, people who are lost. And not sweeping some of these, groups of people under the rug and dismissing them. Certainly Saturn being in this sign, we can feel like there is very little compassion and understanding, especially when it comes to leaderships for some of these individuals. And so I think this is a big thing we need to talk about. And it's not just people who are homeless, it's people in general who are just mentally really going through it. And it's important to recognize and realize that Saturn can give us a test. So for me, I think it's like a test of faith. How faithful are we going to be in our practice? How attuned are we going to be to our beliefs? What do we have to hold on to? And it may lead some people back to areas and places of worship. I do think we may see a major resurgence of people returning to church and people worshiping and doing that type of work, or temple, or anything that's going to be organized religion. It's very possible. I have high hopes that we are going to be able to help people with mental health and create the facilities and the services and the things that we can really help people choose to stay on this planet and receive healing and compassion. But certainly, Pisces stellium, there is a huge risk of feeling overwhelmed and feeling lost, or in a fantasy, or, feeling like we are disillusioned. That's a huge theme that comes with this particular transit. Now with that, it requires healing and compassion. And that's something that Pisces knows a lot about. So with the stellium of planets here, it definitely makes me feel like there's some hope that through some kind of, unfortunate turn of events, it can really wake people up and make us realize that we are capable of healing. Certainly healing ourselves is a big theme in the entire month of April. But I think it's about healing and compassion, and a time where people are feeling more inclined to forgive, to heal old wounds and extend kindness to other people, which means we have to forgive. We don't have to forget, but we have to forgive, and we have to be willing to say, I'm not going to carry that weight around, any longer. I'm not going to carry that grudge. I'm not going to hold it against people. And really learning to kind of put whatever has gone on in the past and supersede some of these heavier astrological forces, which can be energetically and emotionally weighing us down. And just be mindful, I think that so much of Pisces is about healing. And so I think on the topic of, healing, I think that, art therapy can be wonderful, having some kind of hobby that can be expressive, or you're painting, drawing, dancing, you can do that. Pisces is very sensitive to art and beauty. So this is a sign that, many people during this time might be feeling drawn to art, music, and other forms of creative expression. That is a means for being able to express what's going on in the soul. And it can be an outlet for many people who are really feeling the pressure, right, of all of these planets kind of coming into contact with both Saturn as well as Neptune. I think where Saturn kind of restricts, Neptune starts to kind of release, and it starts to let go. So we might notice where there's some tension. I kind of think of like the Saturn Neptune is like a Charlie horse. You guys have had those where it's like, if you start to feel it coming on, and if you tense up, it's like, it's even more painful, and it lasts longer. But if you actually breathe into it and you stretch your foot and you stretch your leg, you'll notice that the muscle will start to relax. But if you're hyperventilating, you're freaking around, right, and you're not stretching out the bottom part of your foot, it's going to kind of it's going to lock up on you. So really, I think it's going to be about kind of combating some of these energies where we have a tendency to clam up, and realize that when we're clamming up, we're holding on to emotions and things that are actually kind of isolating us and separating us from other people, and keeping us from higher levels of connection, empathy, and also connectedness to the people who are around us. Now, I guess you're asking me, how do I work with this energy? Okay, so you're going to have to look at which house it's in. I do touch on this in my March 2024 horoscope, so I definitely recommend listening. But for me, these are some things that I kind of put down that are my goals throughout the next 2 months to be working with. And one is about embracing creativity. I already kind of started doing it, creating some different content, some stuff that I feel like is a little bit more fun and a little bit more relaxed. It's kind of like less rigid as some of the format that I usually kind of use. And I'm doing that intentionally because I'm just trying to kind of go with the flow. But because Pisces is highly creative and imaginative, I encourage you guys to use the next couple of months, use this energy to explore your artistic talents and express yourself through various creative outlets, okay? However that is. Some things that I really like to do personally is I really like to vision board. Like I love to create collages to put on my phone, put on my tablets, my computer. That's something I love to do. If you guys have seen my horoscopes, I design all the horoscopes that I put together for you guys. And like, that's my favorite thing to do every month because I'm able to create these collages. And so I think I'm going to do more of that, either for like my content or just for some of the things that I'm trying to manifest in 2024. And if you want to do it digitally, you can. If you want to do it old school and go and pick up a stack of magazines and cut out a bunch of stuff and create this board that you're going to put where you're going to see it every day, that's an excellent way to embrace creativity. But it can also be painting, dancing, drawing, singing, writing, however you want to express yourself. This is the time to do it. And bring structure to the things that you're creating, because Saturn is about being routine and consistent and showing up and doing it, even if you're doing it for shorter increments every day. You don't have to say, okay, I'm quitting my job and becoming a fine painter. You don't have to do that, but you could say I'm committing to maybe going to a paint instruction, class once a week, or I'm doing it on Zoom, or, I'm reserving my Sunday afternoons to do some painting, and finding ways to have shorter increments of incorporating either art or creativity into your regular routine. Now, another really awesome way to use this energy is to develop your intuition, because, Pisces is known as like the psychic or the oracle. So practicing meditation and other techniques to develop and trust your intuition, which can help you make better decisions and navigate your life's challenges more effectively. I kind of laugh because my dad gave me as like a gag gift for my birthday. He gave me like a deck of those cards. It's like the psychic training cards. I can't remember what they're called now, but it's got like the circle and the square and the triangle and the star. And I thought you hold them up and play like how you play cards. Apparently I was doing it wrong. Hello. But you're supposed to lay them all out, I guess, on a table in front of you. And you have to flip one over, and then you have to try to find like another card while they're face down that matches. And you have to see how many you're able to kind of connect. My commitment has been like, okay, I'm going to start doing more like training exercises. And for a long time, when I was working in LA, I was training and teaching psychic development classes because my background is being a clairvoyant. And teaching, students how to exercise and how to send and receive messages. One of my favorite things to do is I would put students in pairs and I'd give them a deck of cards and I would say, okay, one of you guys holds the cards and you hold up the card and you have to send and receive what that card is. So if you have a partner and you want to do this, grab a deck of cards, have somebody hold the deck and pull the card out and put it on top of their head, but they can't look at it. And the person in front of you who's looking at the card, they have to send you that card. Now you can play colors. So it can be, if it's a red suit or a black suit, you can play odds and evens, you can play numbers, and practice sending it. And I would tell my students, okay, it's the 5 of hearts, send fire, send heat. Send images that are red, and the person would sit there and they would wait until they would receive it and they'd be like, oh, I got really hot. And they're like, is it red? And they're like, yeah. And the more that you practice sending and receiving, as crazy as it sounds, the better you get at it. So that's one way that I would kind of work with my students. But obviously, any psychic development, this is a wonderful time if you want to learn more about tarot, if you want to learn more about meditation, if you want to learn more about hypnosis. I love Pisces placements for hypnosis. So if you're dealing with an inability to overcome something, or maybe there's like a phobia or a fear, or you're developing new habits, get yourself a hypnotherapist, somebody who can work with you and create tapes or something you can listen to at bedtime. Wonderful way to be able to establish new habits and routines and to work with the subconscious to clear some of this stuff out. Obviously, practice compassion and empathy whenever you can. Pisces is a compassionate and empathetic sign, so use this energy to develop deeper connections with others and help those in need. Remember how I talk about Pisces representing things that are lost or things that are hidden? You know, it may mean that something goes missing and somebody's saying, oh, I lost this thing and I just can't find it. And you happen to have an extra one of those items that they lost laying around, and you may feel compelled to be like, you know what? I don't need this. I'm going to practice an act of selflessness. You have it. Those opportunities, right? Or when you decide that you want to pay for somebody's cup of coffee and you pay it forward, right? You know, kind acts that may go unnoticed, but you do them anyway. It's not that you're doing it because you want recognition. You're doing it because you're wanting to show compassion, empathy for other people, especially other people who may not necessarily have all of the privilege that you may have. And how fulfilling that can feel, just being able to help other people. You'd be surprised what small like acts of service can really mean to somebody, especially in this day and age where you never know what somebody's dealing with. You never know what struggles they're fighting or what they've got going on in their personal life. I see amazing acts of kindness all over the time, all over the internet recently. I've noticed a trend. There's been a shift, you know, where we're seeing people who are shifting away from just like cat videos and like shit posting to people who are genuinely doing good things. I saw something that really, really moved me on Twitter the other day. I guess it was like a female Uber driver, and she picked up a woman who said like her car broke down or something happened and she couldn't get to work. So this woman picks her up and telling her, oh, you know, I'm just stressed out. She was working at a fast food restaurant and she was an older woman. You know, I'm working there. I'm having financial struggles. You know, it's just been really hard to make ends meet. And she tells the Uber driver in confidence, I'm just so upset because, you know, I don't even have any nice clothes to wear to church, and I, let alone barely even have the time to go. Tells her this, doesn't think anything of it. The Uber driver takes her to work and then drops her off, comes back 2 hours later, like through the fast food line, and hands her a bag of clothes. So apparently the Uber driver went to a mall and she went and she saw other women who were like her size and was like, what size do you wear? And was trying to kind of size up what she would be. Bought her a couple dresses or outfits for church, got a gift card, put it in a bag, came back to where she was working. The woman was working the drive-through, pulled through and gifted her these clothes and was like, I would like you to be able to go to church. Like, I hope, you know, this is helpful for you. How amazing is that? Complete strangers. You don't know anybody, right? And oftentimes you get into an Uber, you don't even think about it. I see how sometimes people treat Uber drivers, which is horrific. But, you know, it's like you never know, just in a common kind of exchange and conversation, who may be listening and who may hear that you may need some assistance. And if you happen to find yourself in that situation and you're able to do something kind for another person, please do that, because that's going to have an amazing ripple effect throughout these transits. And encourage other people to see the goodness and the kindness in other people, and also encourage other people to keep the faith. Now, the key here with mutable stelliums, especially in Pisces, is to be adaptable, okay? So this is why I said float on, almost like, what else came up for me during this? Like Finding Nemo, you know, like Dory, she's like, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. Obviously, she had a memory issue. That can be a Neptunian thing too. But this is about you just keep going, you know, okay, we're going with the flow. We're just going to keep going. We're going to get there at some point. That's kind of how the Pisces stellium is going to feel. The way to work with this is to embrace that energy and to be adaptable, to be open to change, and working with other people and being flexibility, because being flexible is going to help us navigate the ups and downs of this transit and embrace the opportunities that come about when they arrive. One thing I love about Neptune is sometimes things go missing for a reason, for a purpose. And other times things pop up out of the blue that we didn't see coming. That's actually like divine timing. Without fail, I have noticed this in my 14 plus years of reading tarot. Every now and then I'll have a time period where I'll have a deck and a card will go missing. How? I don't know. I swear there are like little elves in my house. They steal tarot cards and socks. But occasionally I will notice this, where I'll be like counting my cards, or I'll be kind of setting everything up for a video, and the card that I'm looking for is missing and I can't find it. And of course I have like an existential crisis, because generally it's like a deck that is not replaceable. And so I noticed this to happen to me about a week ago, and I was like, where the hell is this card? And then the more that I thought about it, I was like, that's the card that I need to be like really focusing on. Like there is a purpose to this. There is a message here. And I couldn't find the card. And I kept thinking about the card, and I cracked open one of my tarot books and was like pouring through deeper symbolism and meaning and all of this stuff. And then I picked something up in one of the passages, and I was like, this is something I needed to hear. No joke, 2 hours later, the card appears. So I'm like, okay, I got the message, you know? So sometimes, you know, being adaptable, being flexible is important to move through this energy, but also things that may change or remove themselves or go hidden or suddenly present themselves, there's a deeper meaning. There's a deeper message in that. And that's something that you guys want to kind of be mindful of, because there can be some really serendipitous things that can take place. Obviously, you know, connect with spirituality whenever you can, if that's something that you're open to, exploring new spiritual beliefs and practices to help you find a deeper sense of purpose and meaning. I think so much about these planets coming into conjunction with Saturn is about a commitment to what we know is our, you know, our karma or the work or the responsibility that we have. And then Neptune can really teach us that some of the sacrifices that we make are for a bigger purpose, for a bigger reason, right? And that we're learning a lot about the things that are delayed. We're learning a lot about the things that are being withheld, about what we don't have, what we have not received, that there is a lesson in that. And so, yeah, that can create for some people a crisis of faith, but for other people, it can be a breakthrough, and it can actually really teach us that consistency, patience, and also devotion to a particular spiritual practice can be what actually gets us through. Do be mindful of boundaries, because while it's important to be open and compassionate, it's also essential, especially with Saturn and Pisces, to set healthy boundaries, right? So to protect your own emotional well-being, be mindful of your own needs and feelings. Don't be afraid to say no when necessary. This is really important because Saturn is involved. People don't realize that like your auric field, it expands like anywhere from like 6 to 9 feet outside of your body, okay? So even if there is nobody that's physically touching you or nothing that's physically touching you, when you're around other people, you're in other people's auric field. And so the stuff that we're picking up, the stickies, all that stuff, there is more of a need to be more mindful of the effect and the influence that it has on us, especially because with these Pisces transits, you're going to see a lot of people that are going to be like out of their mind. They're going to be heavily drinking, drugging, are kind of just like out of it. And we can be more susceptible to attachments when that stuff is going on. There's a reason why they call alcohol spirits. So I, for one, am looking at this and I'm like, what a great time for sobriety. Now that may not be for everybody, but that's what I've been thinking about. And I think about, you know, what I want to have in my field. And if I want to be, you know, having alcohol in my system because of the effects that it might have on me, you know, mentally or emotionally. I think about the places that I may be, and if I'm going to be around people that are going to have some of those stickies as well, and the impact that it'll have on me. Because I've noticed just personally having Saturn in my 6th house, I've had to kind of clean up and clear more, cleanse more, soak more. I'll give you guys my recommendations in a second. But be mindful of boundaries, time boundaries, emotional boundaries, physical boundaries, home boundaries, it doesn't matter. Not having boundaries, right? Saturn and Pisces, the illusion of boundaries without the actual boundary, without setting it, without saying it, can have such a huge impact on all of us emotionally and physically. And above all, do your best to stay grounded. Because with the Pisces stellium, we can be more prone to daydreaming and escapism. Make sure to stay grounded and connected in the present moment. This can help you maintain a sense of balance and stability in your life. How do you get grounded, right, with all these planets in Pisces? Well, I think the positive is that we've got a number of sextiles to Jupiter and Uranus. So what is Jupiter? Faith, learning. It can be about growth. It can be about feeling solid in our belief system. It can be about knowing our truth, standing by our values, you know, connecting and committing to something firmly that we believe in. That's what Taurus is. It's the boulder that we can't move. And then Uranus, which, you know, has connections and associations with changes. Also our nervous system, things that deal with energy, frequencies. Something that I just recently invested in is I just got myself a Rife machine. So I'm excited for that because I'm, wanting to experiment with frequencies, and I've been learning a lot about that. And I feel like that's going to be like a huge game changer for me because I know a lot of it is frequency impact, both because of my work, but also just technology, computers and phones and internet and other things that I have found that I'm like super sensitive to. But Taurus is the earth element. So that doesn't mean that you have to necessarily, just ground your energy by listening to frequencies, although it can help. Crystals, a well-rounded diet, grounding mats, putting your feet out in the grass, going for a walk, spending time in nature, doing some gardening, connecting with the earth element. So grounding your energy is really helpful. And sometimes that's as simple as reminding yourself when you're doing like a daily routine. I don't know about you, but like sometimes we're just going through the motions and we're just out of it. And we're just kind of doing things, but we're not like really present. So if you're doing something as simple as folding some towels or doing some laundry, take a second to stop, hold the towel or whatever you're folding in your hand and be really present and recognize, okay, I'm not just going through the motions. It's like, nope, I'm doing this, and really being checked in. Or if you're, making a meal, or if you're brushing your hair, if you're walking your dog, take time to be present, be in your body. Don't be focusing on getting out of your body, feel into your body. And that's what's going to help you kind of ground your energy. I have lots of recommendations that I'll give you guys, but I will tell you that a lot of this is connected to the nervous system, and where we're so stressed out and we're not comfortable in our skin, or we're not comfortable with the state of our body or how we feel. Pisces means we want to get out of it. So if we are dealing with stored trauma, fear, financial concern, an overrun nervous system, right? It's going to be hard to kind of stay in our body. We're going to want to get out of our body. So all this Pisces energy is like, I want to drink, I want to party, I want to drug, I want to sleep, I just want to zone out. And doing that, you're missing an amazing opportunity to actually tap in and really get in touch with your inner self. I've been loving somatic workouts, and I was kind of resistant to doing it for a while, but it's now something that I'm pretty much doing almost every day. I try to start my day doing that. I got an app. I think it's called the Better Me app, but there's like a whole list of like somatic workouts that are really awesome, which helps you get in touch with your nervous system and helps you work through trapped and stored emotions in your body. And I love it because you can be doing it for a period of time, and then you'll just notice that certain poses or things have a major emotional release. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Something else also that I have been looking at, and I'm going to be doing a lot during this period, is like, sauna, spa stuff, soaking. I'm already having to, do about at least a bath a week. I'm probably on the verge of doing more, and I'll share some tips with you. But because Pisces represents spas and healing centers and temples and anything where we have seclusion, water, prayer, and relaxation and healing, that's what we want to be doing. So you don't have to necessarily go to a day spa. Some of you guys are like, I work 5 days a week, I've got kids, I'm strapped for time and cash. It is as simple as drawing yourself a bath. And if you don't have a bath, you better get a bucket. And if you don't want to get a bucket, then you need to find a body of water. It's that simple. There's ways around it. I'm going to give you guys some tips, but try to be in touch with what your body is telling you, because if we're able to do that, we're going to have that connection to our higher self. Now, Pisces in general, right, rules various body systems. So specifically, Pisces has connections to the feet and to the toes. So all body fluids, mucus, the blood, the lymphatic system, the glandular system, the endocrine system, this is all Pisces. And the ability of tissues and body systems to relax, including the respiratory system, the pineal gland, and the abdomen. This is all Pisces. So if you want to be doing some stuff that's like pineal decalcification, you can. If you want to be doing like third eye work, you can. Obviously, you're going to cut your fluoride to do that, but I've been looking around with Saturn and Pisces, and I'm like, everywhere I go, people are sick. Everybody's sick. Everybody's coughing and hacking. I don't think a lot of people realize that we're having some real issues with our immune system. If you guys haven't already seen my Saturn and Pisces link, so if you click the link in the description, there's a link that says book list. And it's all the books and the tarot cards that I use. But I've also created other lists. So I literally posted all of my health supplement regimen. I posted all the things that I'm using for Saturn and Pisces. People asked about my hair and makeup routine. It's on there if you want it. But specifically, there's a Saturn and Pisces page. And I would take a look at that. Stuff that I've been doing is I've gotten really into using, let's see, what is it called? I think it's methane blue. I've been using that in my water. Magnesium is like amazing. I like to put it in my water because it honestly calms me down. I've had North Node on my moon, so I've been super spicy. Magnesium's good. I like magnesium spray. I've been putting that on my feet at night, and I put it on my stomach to help me relax. I've also been using colloidal silver like crazy. Touch wood. I haven't gotten sick. I have really bad allergies, but I have not gotten sick. What else? I've been using a little bit of iodine in my water. That's pretty much it. And just trying to drink really high quality water. I think that that's really what I've been focusing on and trying to stay hydrated. Now, remedies for some imbalances that you can kind of see sometimes with Pisces placement. One thing that I would say is you want to use warming herbs because Pisces is like a wet, it's like a wet energy. So it can mean that, you know, you're needing to use herbs and things that are going to kind of warm you up or actually kind of dry up extra wetness. And you also want to be incorporating, you know, plenty of sleep, learning how to create firm boundaries and how to ground your energy. Basically, these are the top things to do. Massages can also be very helpful. Specifically, I've been really interested in rolfing, not just for the reworking of like the body, but also like removing emotions, because I know a lot of it is connected to emotions and where the body has knots and it's got like lumps or bumps, or, you know, you've got areas that are just not smoothing out no matter what you eat or what you do fitness wise, things that the body is holding on to. So I've kind of gotten into like rolfing as well. Now, what can I recommend for you guys? Salt, 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 and more salt. Okay. And I've recommended this on some videos, but I'm going to say it again. High quality salt, sea salt. Like when I start my day, I take a glass of, I've got a reverse osmosis machine. I've used it regularly. It's the only water I drink now. I won't drink water out of plastic anymore. And I put in a pinch of gray mineral salt. Okay. And it's on my Pisces list. You guys can see it. That's the kind I like because I want to make sure that I'm getting raw natural minerals. So I drink that. But also when I take baths, I'm not using table salt. You know, I go and buy a bulk bag of sea salt. Sometimes I'll also buy a bulk bag of Himalayan salt. I like that as well. I also have like a salt lamp literally like in every room. But I like to use sea salt because of the minerals and the compounds, and it's not processed. Sea salt is dead salt. So you want to use a salt that's a high quality salt. And I also recommend high quality water. I know like a lot of people have their preferences with water. Some people only want bottled water. Other people are like, oh, I have my Stanley cup 24/7. Other people want spring water. I'm not going to tell you what to drink. I'm going to tell you that you should be having high quality water. For me personally, after doing all the research that I did, I determined that I was either going to do reverse osmosis and test my water, which is what I do, or I decided I was going to have spring water delivered, and like the jury is still out on whether or not I'm going to do that. But like I'm loving my reverse osmosis machine. It's going pretty well, although I noticed that I'm having to fill it like several times a day because I'm trying to drink a lot of water. So good water, good salt. Really, that's all that you need. But if you want to use other liquids, I recommend Florida water. You can get Florida water generally at most botanicas. They also sell it at Walmart. You can go to the Walmart section where they have all of like the men's hair creams and gel and stuff. It's a couple bucks. You get yourself a bottle. It is like chef's kiss. That stuff will clean the stickies off of anything. I will use it and put it on my hands after I'm done doing readings. I'll clean my desk with it when I'm done working. I've got some Florida water in an aerosol spray. Those of you guys who are used to having botanicas and like working with that energy, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't want to use that, you can just use some very simple like holy water or blessed water. You don't have to go and buy holy water. You can make it yourself. Take a pitcher of water, set it down, pray over it, speak your intentions to it, and then what? You can clean stuff with it. You can wipe down counters. You can pour it over your head in a bath. You can give it to your dog. You can drink it. Do not underestimate the power of setting intention, prayer, and water with this transit. Baths, sprays, and diffusers, okay? Because Neptune is about water, but also Pisces has connections to oil as well. So something I like to do is I like to take like a spray bottle and I'll put like distilled water in there. Maybe I'll put some like orange or lemon peels, a pinch of salt, a couple shakes of essential oil, set my intention, and that's what I use to clear the room. I can spray it in between readings. I can also spray it in the house if I want to break up some vibes. And I would really recommend, doing something like that. If you're into diffusers, you can get diffusers that have associations with Pisces. But I would definitely lean more into either sprays or to oils for this particular transit. And obviously something else that's really helpful is also going to be sound, okay? Sound healing, whether you want to listen to music and set the tone and the vibe of your office space, your house, your apartment, or you want to listen to binaural beats and particular frequencies. For one, I love blasting like Gregorian chants. It's like the weirdest thing, but that will clear a room like nobody's business. So sometimes before I start my day, I'll put up, a video on YouTube and just like let it run in my room while I'm showering and getting ready for work, light a candle, light some incense and leave. And I come back and I'm like, wow, that really kind of broke up the energy in the space and really made it feel a little bit better. So don't sleep on like, church music, gospel music, Gregorian chants. This is all like Pisces stuff. And anything that is going to, create a higher vibration, because sound can kind of break stuff up. Now, in particular, frequencies that promote healing and peace are generally in the range of 4 to 13 hertz, which falls within the alpha and theta brainwave states. So these frequencies are associated with deep relaxation and meditation and increased creativity. So if you're familiar with this, or if you know of binaural beats, you know what I'm talking about. If not, then I would check them out. You can find them for free on YouTube. You can pop in some headphones and you can vibe out and you can listen to something while you're lying in bed or while you're meditating. I also recommend checking out the Schumann resonance. This is the Earth's natural frequency, which is around 7.83 hertz. And it's believed to promote healthy and balanced body and mind. And there's live, feeds that you can see where there's huge spikes going on with the frequencies. And I think a lot of that is connected to the fact that like people are going through waves of like picking things up, and we feel like when change is coming. Also, you can listen to the delta frequency. So this is the slowest brainwave frequency, ranging from 0.1 to 4 hertz, and it's associated with deep sleep and healing, as well as spiritual experiences and connections to the divine. And I also noted the theta frequency, which is a slightly faster brainwave frequency, ranging from 4 to 8 hertz, and it's associated with deep relaxation, meditation, and increased creativity. Do yourself a favor, make a note of this, go on YouTube, type in binaural beats, and definitely listen with headphones or listen with like plug-in headphones. Go and do your research about those AirPods. I don't know about that. It might seem a little counterproductive personally listening to it with AirPods, but maybe that's just me. Okay. As for those of you guys who are like, what oils or incense or herbs or crystals do I work with? First of all, what I'm going to tell you is this. Literally all you need is salt and water and some meditation music to get you through this season. Don't feel like you need to have all the bells and whistles. If you want to, great. But Pisces is telling us that we can do almost whatever we can imagine with next to nothing. So we don't want to become reliant on stuff, especially with Saturn and Pisces. We have to learn to do it on our own. But if you happen to have some of these things, if you happen to already work with crystals or oils, you can kind of incorporate this into your routine, but don't feel like you have to. Now, some oils that I have that are associated with Pisces, you can use in a diffuser, you can put it in a spray bottle and dilute it with some, salt water and spray it. If you have essential oil rollers that's formulated specifically to put on your body, you can do that. Be very careful with essential oils, and you should not be ingesting them or putting them directly on your skin unless you've been, told how to use them and they've been kind of cut down with another carrier oil. So be very careful with that. But I like lavender, chamomile, sage, frankincense, ylang ylang, sandalwood, and cedarwood. Lemon as well. That would probably be my other add. Probably, and I'll tell you guys what I do for my baths, but yeah, these are any combination of these you guys can use. That can be really helpful for kind of staying grounded. And then for herbs, like let's say you want to, brew some tea, or you want to, steep a bath, or you want to create a floor wash, or maybe you want to mix some herbs to burn on like, a incense charcoal. I like chamomile, lavender, and mugwort. Specifically, these three are awesome as a tea. So if you want to get a blend with these in it, or if you want to get some dried mugwort, lavender, and chamomile, amazing. I love to drink this before I meditate. I love to drink this before I do any readings as well. Mugwort is such a great herb for being able to be in touch with your third eye and like picking up things that you wouldn't typically pick up. You can also use St. John's wort, valerian, which is really helpful for sleep. And St. John's wort, it does interact with some medications. So just, before you consume anything, please check with your doctor or make sure it's something you can take. But that's a great mood booster and enhancement. Catnip, willow, and water lily. So these are the herbs that I would use connected to Pisces. And then finally, for crystals, if you're somebody who's like a crystal queen, or you have a collection, or maybe you want to create like a grid, I recommend working with amethyst, aquamarine, fluorite, moonstone, selenite, angelite, labradorite, and lepidolite. These are the best crystals to be working with during this particular transit. A lot of these are going to be helping you connect to your higher self, develop stronger intuition, receive messages, enhance dreams, and connect with ascended beings. So if you're wanting to kind of hang out more with your spirit team, this is definitely what you want to do. Now, God honest truth, okay? When I take a bath, it's very simple. I will take probably a handful. I don't really measure things. I just use my hand. I do a handful of sea salt, throw it in the bath. A handful of Epsom salt. And I like to buy the Epsom salt that has the lavender scent. You don't have to, but you can. I like it for like muscle recovery and stuff too as well. And then I do a handful of pink Himalayan salt. That's it. Throw that in. I like to detox. I've been trying to do more heavy metal detox. So I will do a handful of baking soda, and I do about 2 tablespoons of borax. I throw that into my water. And then I like to take either, cause I'm always putting lemon in my water and stuff. I'll take whatever lemon is kind of hanging out on the counter that needs to be used. Sometimes I'll slice it up and I'll steep it in like some hot water, some boiling water, and then pour it into my bath. And that's really it. If you want to do more, like if you want to steep herbs and you want to put stuff, in a like muslin sack and put it in your bathtub, you can. Certainly I've done that. I love to make baths and stuff, but really salt and lemon and baking soda and borax, those are my go-to. If I had to pick one herb that I would use, it would either be lemon or it would be hyssop. Hyssop is my go-to, guys. There's a reason why it was used in the Bible for clearing and healing. It's an amazing herb for removing any stickies. It's kind of like a cure-all for me. I always have like several pounds of hyssop on tap. So sometimes I will steep some of that and throw it into my bath as well. I'll take a bath as hot as I can take it. That's just me personally. And then I'll soak in there, completely submerge, head to toe. I have to go under a couple of times and I'll just soak. And then when I'm done, when the bath is kind of cooled off, I pull the drain. I let the bath completely drain before I get out of it. I get up, I just kind of pat off and towel off. I won't even dry my hair because when I'm doing these baths, I'm not doing it to like scrub a dub and do a deep conditioner. No, I'm doing it to completely clear. And then what I'll do is I'll tie my hair up when I get out and dress in white. And then I'll go to bed wearing a white t-shirt or white pajamas or whatever. And then the next morning I'll get up and I'll do my full shower routine, wash my hair, everything. But I like to go to bed with that on me because that's clearing. Now, if you want to burn sage or Palo Santo, or you want to do your, oils or whatever, you can, but super simple. Get yourself some salt, take a hot bath. If you don't have a bath, get a bucket. You can also brew this stuff prior and have it all mixed up, and then you can dump it over yourself in a bathtub. It's another way to do it, just food for thought. So when you're doing that, obviously too, some ritual ideas for Pisces is, I would say, like, do a water meditation. So, it would be a wonderful way for you to connect with this energy. This can mean that you meditate in the shower, you meditate in the bathtub. Maybe you find a quiet place near water, like a lake or a beach. Sit in silence and focus on the sound of the movement of water. And alternatively, if you can't do that, you can fill a bowl with water and meditate on the surface of the water, imagining your thoughts and emotions flowing into the water and being released. Super simple. You don't need anything crazy to be able to do this. Water scrying is kind of fun too, if that's something that you're into during this particular transit. Another ritual idea would be dream journaling. Because Pisces is connected to the unconscious, realm and dreams. Dream journaling can be a powerful ritual to connect with its energy. So keep a journal by your bed and write down your dreams as soon as you wake up. Over time, you might start to notice patterns and messages from your unconscious mind. I am the queen of this. I won't even get out of bed sometimes before Googling my dream. And my husband thinks I'm a total psychopath because he'll be like, I had this dream that this thing happened. And he's like, it doesn't mean anything. But sure enough, time and time again, especially the weird ones, there seems to be some kind of correlation. So I'm going to keep doing it. What do you guys think? Have you guys been having some weird dreams? And obviously, any which way that you guys can be creating and doing something that's going to be very expressive, considering, donating some time or services for other people, especially if you're willing to kind of give back to your community. So if you want to volunteer at a local charity or help a friend in need, please consider doing that, because this can be a powerful way to tap into the selflessness of Pisces, and continue to be persistent and consistent in some kind of spiritual practice, because it's going to be so significant for the dissolution of the ego. Engaging in spiritual practice can be such a powerful way to connect to this energy. Anything from meditation to prayer to yoga to energy healing, maybe doing some Reiki. Find a practice that, really aligns with you, and make it a commitment to be doing it regularly between now and May to really make the most of these particular energies. But hopefully that was helpful, giving you guys some insight on how to navigate the tricky waters of the Pisces stellium. Just remind yourself to just keep on floating on, and, stay in touch. Let me know how you feel with this. Also, if you're a practitioner, if you're a healer, if you're into readings, if you're into healings, or maybe you practice hypnotherapy, please leave your recommendations below. Let us know what you recommend during this time. I'm sure we're going to hear more recommendations for music and sound. Certainly sound healing, sound baths also is a wonderful way to work with this energy as well. But let me know what you guys think. I'll be back on Thursday. We'll be doing some more videos for you guys, so stay tuned for that. And I will catch you guys all back here then. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Until next time, take care.